Hello, and welcome to my first full-length YouTube video. I'm going to show you how I made this beautiful hollowform Katanga. I'm Scott Williams of Williams & Sons Unique Originals. Please like and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like this. I started out with this naturally aged piece of spalted maple. After the piece was cleaned up and roughed out, it made this huge pile of shavings. Unfortunately, I lost the video showing most of the initial rough forming, so I'm including these photos. After removing all the softer areas, it looked like Swiss cheese. Since it was so soft, it was then placed in a bucket with stabilizing liquid, left for almost 3 months to cure. Once it was cured, I cast it in the resin using designer epoxy deep cast and used eye candy blue blood and icicle for the pigments. Now back on the lathe for roughing out again. I have about 100 hours of total labor into this piece, from cutting it off the log to taking the final unveiling video. So what you're seeing here is a snapshot of about 20 hours of footage. I edited the most exciting footage down to about 30 minutes. There's some real-time moments, but most of it is in fast forward so you can see the project come to life. Let me know in the comments if you'd rather see more real-time thunk, 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 or if you enjoy my choices of random background music and semi-rambling narration. So due to one half of the round being pretty solid and the other half being really soft and soaking up a lot of resin, this piece was out of balance through the entire process. Although I was able to get it rounded out, it was a battle all the way through. Probably one of the toughest projects that I've had to work on. It didn't help matters that the resin was completely cured by the time I got around to working on it. I think it sat for about 2 months after pouring it because I had other projects I needed to get finished. When you're working on fresh poured resin, you get those pretty flowing white ribbons that go shooting up in the air and look like a fountain. And I have some of that as I got deeper into the piece, but even after roughing it out, fully cured resin is harder and comes off in smaller chunks and makes a bigger mess and sharp pieces fly off. Working on a fresh poured piece is a little easier, but I'd still experience those balance issues. Let me step back for a minute and you can listen to the joyful drone of industrial machinery in real time. Here you can see all the debris that gets flying around and lands on you and anything else in the immediate area. Here I'm still shaping out the piece. When you start working on a new project, you have an idea what shape you want something to be, but as you start working and refining it, the piece is going to tell you what shape it wants to be. For example, I wanted a shape that was more narrow at the top and the bottom and less bulbous. But in order to get there, I would have had to taken off a lot more material and lose most of the resin in those areas. It's important to have a balance between the wood and the resin. I started out with a lot of resin on this piece, but as I got further into the wood, it was so beautiful. I wanted to let that shine through, and depending on the areas, I kept more of the resin to complement and accent the wood. So in the end, it was worth sacrificing the resin for the beauty of the finished product. You also have to keep in mind that once your chisel shaves off an area, it's gone for good. You can't put it back. As you're working and going along, you're envisioning the aesthetics that you are trying to achieve in the final piece. It's a bit like walking a high wire and envisioning your next step with your eyes closed. You need to realize that at this stage of only being halfway through, you already have a lot of time and money invested into the project, and one slip up could happen in a split second, and a mistake could easily destroy the project or cost many hours to fix, and try to salvage what you can. So you're always trying to think a few steps ahead of where you're at and with your finished piece in mind. So that way you're confident in how you're going to get there. That being said, you also need lots of experience on how to fix mistakes because they're going to happen, and you'll need to incorporate it into the piece and make them look like it never happened. Being able to pivot quickly to keep the project moving ahead is paramount. So once I'm somewhat happy with the shape, I move over to using the scraper. It quickly removes any lines or tool marks, gives a uniform, smooth, clean finish, and then I can assess whether I need to remove more material from certain areas or just keep on refining the shape. Here's the first peek at the rough form. Gives you an idea of just how beautiful the spalting figure is in this wood as it's just starting to show through. Now if you're new to this word spalt or spalting, let me explain what that is. Spalting is a naturally occurring process where certain types of fungi changes the color of the wood. It takes quite a long time and special conditions. Temperature, amount of moisture, pH, and the type of wood are just some of the things that can affect its growth and intensity. When you look at spalted wood, you can see visible bleaching, darker shades, mineral lines, veining, marbling. It can show actual colors such as red, pink, green, yellow, blue, orange. And while bleaching a section right next to it, the fungi are not harmful to humans and are not molds. Now most woodworkers, especially furniture makers, throw away spalted wood because they think it's rotten, and technically they aren't wrong. What everyone does agree on is that spalted wood is much more difficult to work with. Since the wood has now changed in density, it requires an understanding of those structural differences. You now need to modify your techniques in processing, sanding, and finishing to achieve a good finished product. But it also takes a lot more time and patience. For example, it makes some parts of the wood more porous and other parts less porous, which when you're sanding can cause areas next to each other to lose material faster or slower, causing divots, or they can absorb more resin or less oil. I work almost exclusively in spalted wood because it looks incredible. Spalted wood patterns have more contrast, it's much more interesting to look at, and it's incredible the designs that nature can make in the wood. Let's talk about epoxy resins for a moment. I've been working with epoxy resin for about 8 years now. In that time, I've used inexpensive no-name brands and very expensive popular name brands, and I'm not sponsored by anyone, so here's my nugget of truth. There's not one best resin out there. Each resin is different, and even within brands, they carry several different resins, and each one has different characteristics. So why is that? Because each one has a different intended purpose. It's like saying there is one best kind of paint. But what are you painting? A car, a boat, a rocking horse, a clown's face? For example, on this hollowform, I use 4 different types of resins and 3 different glues because each one has a specific purpose. So before you start a project and purchase resins, especially a major project, do some homework. Ask yourself, what is the intended purpose for the resin in my project and what are the results I'm trying to achieve? And then match the needs of your project to the available products out there. And if you want it to last, get the best quality product for the job. Time for sanding. The dreaded sanding. It's a necessary evil in woodworking. It is what makes or breaks a piece. Too little sanding will make your piece look dull and have scratch marks, but too much sanding, it's going to close up the grain and it won't soak up the finish, leaving an uneven look in the final product. As you can see, I'm using a 90-degree air sander with a 3-inch sanding disc. I work from 80 grit up to 180 grit in both forward and reverse rotations. I turn the air pressure down to reduce the heat from the friction. This gives me more control and won't remove too much material or burn the piece. When working on dry spalted wood, heat is your mortal enemy. You have to use very little pressure and let the sandpaper do the job. If you overheat an area, it's going to start to crack immediately. So once I'm done sanding, I blow it off with some air, apply some naphtha to clean it, and unveil what your finish should look like. This really pops. Look at that beautiful grain. This piece is going to be gorgeous. Some people might use alcohol to clean it off with, but I don't use it for this type of project. Dry, punky wood with lots of spalting is very finicky, and alcohol will displace any moisture in it, and even though it's been stabilized, could cause it to crack. You can't guarantee it won't try to crack using naphtha, but you really need to get as much dust off as you can. Now it's time to apply a resin seal coat. I'm using designer epoxy art cast. This is going to fill in any minor imperfections and seal the wood for further sanding and finishing. It's important to work it in and make sure you use enough. You want to end up with an even finish, and once it starts to set up, it will soak in, and you don't want to end up with any dry spots. I find it easier and faster to use a little extra and sand it off than not use enough and have to add a second coat because of a bunch of dry spots. Since you have to sand it whether you put a second coat on or not, the dry spots are softer than the resin, and you'll risk sanding deeper into the wood and creating an unintended issue that you'll have to stop and fix later. Alright, back to sanding. Here we are at the second round of sanding, again using the air-powered 90-degree angle sander, but this time sanding from 80 up to 240. You can see at the end how nice and uniform the finish is going to be. This is not the final finish, so I don't go past 240. Alright, time to hollow this pumpkin out. As you see, I have it locked in the steady rest. I made the steady rest and it's of my own design. It works pretty good and I'm happy with it except for one thing. I made it before I purchased the hollowing jig. The hollowing jig just fits over it, but the laser sight doesn't. So I need to make some modifications, which I haven't got around to yet. So on this project, I used the laser sight where I could and then the old-fashioned calipers. For those of you sick of my voice or tired of watching life fly by and fast forward, the next 6 minutes are for you. Real-time video with real-life soothing sounds of manufacturing equipment. This is right after applying the seal coat of resin on the inside. As you can see, it's shiny, but it does have some imperfections. I then sanded it down and applied 2 oil coats. Finally, it's time for finish sanding. Here I sand up to 800 grit and get the surface prepped for the final finish coat. Here we go, the big reveal. Isn't the figure and design in this wood just awesome? This is why I love spalted wood. Nothing else looks like this. As I apply the final finish coat, you may notice another piece of purpose-built machinery. It's a rotisserie drying rack I use in my clean room to ensure a flawless finish. The motor rotates at only 6 RPM and helps the finish flow around the surface without creating ridges. I really love this deep cobalt blue that came out in this. In fact, my next video will show me making a large vase using the same colors since I cast it at the same time. It's maple as well, but will feature an obverse grain orientation from this piece. So like and subscribe if you want to be notified when that video drops. I named this piece Katanga after the world's largest cobalt mining region located in the Republic of the Congo. This piece looks very exotic, almost like a found artifact that could have been taken out of an archaeological dig. And I wanted to have an exotic name to match that look, but have connection to not only cobalt, but the earthly look and feel of the piece. If you watched this far, I want to thank you and commend you on your endurance. And please remember to like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. If you have positive comments on how I can make my video better, please leave them below and I'll try to answer all of them back. This piece is available for sale on my website, www.theuniqueoriginals.com. If you want to inquire about this piece, please email me at sales@theuniqueoriginals.com. If you want to inquire about commissioning me to make you a custom piece, you can contact me at the same email address.